Welcome back, baseball family. We have Jerry Izenberg with us, and like we do with all of our guests, we are going to get him in a rundown and a couple of questions for you. First, Jerry, what would you say is your quest?
Is my quest
Yep.
to stay alive to tell all the stories I know. Larry Doby is in Black and White is my 15th book. I've been in the newspaper business for 72 years. I'm the only person I know that turned down the New York Times.
What is your favorite color?
My favorite color?
Yeah, favorite color.
I would say sepia because when we stand side by side, my wife is brown and I'm white.
Ooh, sepia. That's awesome.
You'll never
That's
get
a
that
unique
answer again. You'll never get a smart ass like this again either.
I'm asking the hard-hitting questions here today, Jerry.
Yeah, you are. Brad's got the hard ones. Your favorite boyhood baseball team?
Oh, it was dichotomy. For me, it was the Newark Bears, greatest minor league team in history. Every 4th of July, my mother gave me a brown paper bag with a bologna sandwich and an apple. I got on a bus. I went to Jersey City. In the morning, 22,000 people saw the morning game. Got on a bus, ate the lunch, and then went to Newark where 15,000 people. So it was 37,000 people saw that rivalry in 2 games. And I hold a grudge against baseball for what it's doing to the minor leagues because minor leagues make cities live.
Criminal.
That's 100%. We agree with you.
That's something we could do a whole show on because
we could.
It's terrible.
But my next question for you, Jerry, is if baseball was an ice cream flavor, what would it be?
Baseball were an ice cream flavor?
Yeah.
Today it would be vanilla, which is as plain as you can get when you're going to colors, because they have ruined every good side of the game. When I was in love with baseball, my dad, growing up and throwing a ball back and forth in the alley and whatever else, I would have said baseball was a double dipper, part pistachio, part rum raisin, the two most exotic flavors I could think of.
Okay, I have one more question for you.
Sure.
So, and then we'll get into the book a little bit more. Is Babe Ruth overly romanticized today from what he really was?
I saw Babe Ruth not play. Sitting in the dugout, he was manager of batting coach of the Newark Bears because the Yankees owned. They had to give him a job. I always felt he did save the game of baseball. He did because of the home runs. You know, home run Baker hit what, 7 home runs? I mean, come on.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I could hit 7 home runs on the Sandlot in Newark. But baseball was going to need saving because what the owners thought was saving baseball was Kennesaw Mountain Landis.
Right.
Because he threw out the 8 dumpers. And there's a great debate about whether all 8 of them were dumpers and whether Shoeless Joe, who hit so well in the World Series, whether he really was a dumper.
Yeah.
But he threw them out, and they thought that saved the game. They hired him only because attendance had gone down for 2 or 3 straight years. So they said, "You're the czar. You do whatever you want to do. You can do it." But that didn't save baseball. What saved baseball is the attendance started to go up when Ruth started hitting balls. You got to remember something. Ruth was very famous as a ball player before he hit home run. Well, he hit a couple, but he was a pitcher. Right. He was one of the greatest pitchers. He may be the greatest player. I don't know about that. I've always frowned on that because I believe you judge players by their era. Look at basketball. Basketball now is aerial volleyball.
Mm-hmm. We talk about that all the time, comparing players with their era. Absolutely. Yeah.
You can't do it. The game was different.
Yep.
And baseball was, the eras are so easily divided. The dead ball, but then the lively ball, which was a plan. A couple of times, every time they will get a home run slump. I don't care what they say. We get a lively ball.
Yeah.
Home runs, and it's fill the park.
Mm-hmm.
No hitters don't fill the park.
Let's take a quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to talk more about Jerry's book, Larry Doby in Black and White.
Welcome back, baseball family. Again, we're with Jerry Izenberg, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of a breakdown of his bio. There's way too much to cover. If you don't know Jerry, he's a legend. I'm going to give you some of the info right now. So he's an award-winning journalist, U.S. Army veteran, and a member of the International Boxing Hall of Fame, as well as the New Jersey Hall of Fame. He's been nominated for 15 Pulitzer Prizes during his career. And more than anything, Jerry, like, I think you're not a journalist, you're a newspaper man. Is that correct?
Well, that's going to be on my tombstone.
He's covered 53 Super Bowls, 58 Kentucky Derbies, and considered the late Muhammad Ali a personal friend for decades. His latest book, it's the 15th book, Larry Doby in Black and White, the story of a baseball pioneer. It's currently available, right? Came out today. And congratulations on a 15th book.
Well, thank you very, very much. I hope I can hit 50 or 60 before I finally. Well, I got a lot of stories to tell, and I'm going to find a way to tell them.
That's wonderful.
Love it.
But this is very personal because Larry was my friend for 35 years at least and fell through the cracks, and that never should have been allowed. Because, I don't denigrate with how can you denigrate it? Jackie was Jackie, and he did a marvelous thing. But I'll tell you, in the book, there's a quote from Doby saying, Jackie deserves all the credit he got. He took all the crap, he lived with it. But nobody ever said, we'll be nice to the next Negro that comes along. And that's the story of what happened.
Yeah.
Jackie got in the Hall of Fame first year he was eligible. Larry didn't get in until he was, I think, 78 or 83 years old. It was the Veterans Committee that put him in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you're interested, I can tell you a story about that. Larry swears I got him in. And I kept telling him, you're wrong. I worked very hard for about 6-7 years after I got to the Veterans Committee. But the last time, it was this time he got in, he said to me, look, I'm not going to get in. Don't embarrass yourself and don't write any more about it. It's done and that's it. So what?
Yeah.
I'm going to Newcomb's condo out in California, and that's where I'll be. I'm not going to wait around to hear from them. So that's what I paid no attention to. I took one more shot, and I wrote the nastiest thing I could write. And the column said, why am I not surprised that the Veterans Committee is not putting him in? Because some of you guys didn't want him to play baseball in the first place. Whoa. And then I mailed the clipping to every member of the committee. I got one response. That's what got him in. It began, dear asshole. And it said, Monty, meaning of Monty Irvin, Yogi, meaning Yogi Berra, and I have been pushing him since he got into our jurisdiction. So get off the couch and get the votes we need. And it was signed Ted Williams.
Whoa.
So I didn't get any votes. But anyway, but Ted was a major factor in that because going back to when Larry broke in, I got to tell you this. He reports to the Indians. And as you know, 5 guys shake his hand. 2 guys face the wall. A bunch of guys give him the limp handshake. The manager, I don't care what anybody else says, the manager did not like him and grew to hate him. And one day I said to Larry, after all those years, I said, maybe you got this thing wrong. Did it occur to you, maybe he doesn't want you here because he doesn't think the team is going to let him manage them because you're going to be a big distraction. And he said, that's a really smart idea. He and Jackie were so different and yet so alike. I'll give you 3 reasons they were both shows. They had played with and against white kids much of their lives. 2, they went to college. And 3, they were war veterans. Now those are the credentials. That's World War II we're talking about. Those are the credentials that qualified them both in a lot of people's eyes. Larry was not one to push the envelope, unlike Jackie. Jackie would tear the envelope up, but Larry would internalize every type of thing that happened.
Criticism and everything.
Everything. But the name of the chapter after the prologue in this book is Cleveland Ain't Brooklyn. Larry went to a city that was segregated. The schools were segregated. The hospitals were segregated. There was a big amusement park out there blacks could not go to. And if you went to the movies, you sat in the balcony. Well, that part was not new to him because he and his friends would all go to the movies. And he came to Patterson when he was 13. And they'd all go to movies, and then he'd walk up to the balcony because he was not allowed in the theater.
You've dedicated over 70 years of writing professionally about sports. And both of us are writers. We're both trained journalists. So I wanted to ask you, what is it about sports that captivates you the most? And why, of all things, did you choose to write about sports?
The family consensus was that I should be a lawyer. And we're sitting at the supper table one night, and my mother says, fondly smiling at her baby boy, who was about 12 or 13, "You're going to make a great lawyer, Sonny." And my sister, who rushes anytime she can to denigrate me in those days, says, "You can't be a lawyer." And my mother says, "Why can't he be?" And I said, "Yeah, why can't I be a lawyer? Because the first time you stand up and say, 'I object,' and the judge says overruled, you're going to say, 'Who the hell are you to overrule me?' No, it can't be." And she was right.
That's like my son. I tell him all the time, like, if I tell you to duck, you're going to say why instead of ducking.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I was a very snotty kid. I really was. I had all the answers, and I found out later on I had none of them.
That's what we
As
learned.
one does.
The more you learn, you find out the less you know.
Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, one of them was dying, and disciples were gathered around him, and the last thing he told them was, "I am still learning."
That's awesome. Is there one thing that you would say unifies all sports?
It did before they started to give out participation trophies. It was
Mm.
winning and losing. But I'll tell you something about losing. You're not going to hear this anywhere else because it was said to me. Lombardi and I are sitting in his den. He's not the coach anymore. He's the general manager, and
Hmm.
he's going to leave anyway. I said, "Well, why do you look so glum? You won the game." He was always a bad interview when he won because he was still in the game. When he
Yeah,
lost, you could ask him anything. Most people, it's the other way around.
right.
So I said, "Well, you know what? You won. Isn't that the object here?" He said to me, "I want to tell you something. We were good friends. I wish I never said winning is the only thing. I wish I never said it. Because what I was trying to say, and I didn't articulate correctly, was leaving the field, putting everything in you, having nothing left when then you've won." He said, "But I said the other thing, it's easy to remember, and I don't like it."
So we've been sitting here with Jerry for almost an hour, baseball family, and he's told us many fantastic stories. Is there one or two? Let's just say, is there one story that you wanted to get into the book that you weren't able to fit in there?
In the book, the Larry Doby book,
Yeah, in the Larry
Yeah.
Doby book, yeah.
it's a good question. I find that when I write books, like the book before this was biographical. It was the first 21 years of my life. And every day I say, this should have been the book. I had no notes. I was a 90-year-old man remembering the first 21 years of his life, and the real good stuff never got into the book. This book, I think we really made everything in it. I'm just wondering whether there's anything. I wish I had taken more time. I think I did. The Civil War is in this book. I mean, this is a social document.
Right.
Because Larry's deprivation was a social deprivation.
Hmm.
Uh, I wish I could have done more with the friendship between Larry Doby and Joe Taub. That was his best boyhood friend, although he was 4 years younger than Doby taught him. Larry Jr. said to me, uh, my dad, I said, your dad taught Joe a two-handed set shot because Doby was a great athlete. And he said, yeah, he laughed. He said he never had a jump shot. I said, Junior, let me tell you something. Nobody in America except a guy named Hank Lugetti had a jump shot. Nobody knew what it was in those days.
Yeah.
But anyway, their friendship was so. I did get in the book, but not to the extent I would like it. Larry Doby in the book is he stood in front of Joe Taub's apartment building. They agreed to take a tour from me. I said, I want you guys to go walk back through the old neighborhood. and I want you to point to buildings and tell me what they were and what they meant to you personally. That is in the book, and that I'm very proud of.
Hmm.
But Larry, Joe told the story. Larry wouldn't tell it. Larry used to stand in front of my front door and throw rocks in the air and take a baseball bat and hit them over the roof of our building, and they landed in front of his building, which was in the next block away. But I wish I'd amplified more what they meant to each other. It was the guy that founded ADP. He said, we never had any racial problem here in this area. Never. Blacks and Jews. And of course, if we went downtown to the movie, there was a racial problem. He had to go sit in the balcony. But I'll tell you this. He said, racial problems we just didn't have. It wasn't it wasn't what religion or what color you were. It was which team did you play on in the neighborhood. I'm not going to go out with that guy. He's plays for Cow Street. He said, that's what it was. And Doby said to me, I'll make a little correction here. He said, racial problems, stuff like that, we didn't have any problems because they were somebody else's problems. That's a quote from Larry Doby, poet laureate of Paterson, New Jersey. Said, nothing he ever said is more important.
That's awesome.
Does
That's
that
really
answer
awesome.
the question? I hope.
Yeah, it sure
Fantastic.
does.
Yeah.
I've got one more question, and
Sure.
then we're going to let you go. I want to talk about the photograph, and I'm going to pull it up. It's probably it's at the end of the World Series, and Larry Doby is hugging Steve Gromek,
Oh,
and I want to talk about that briefly because just to give everybody context, Cleveland has not won a World Series since Larry Doby's first full season in Major League Baseball. It's 1948. So they win the World Series. Doby and Gromek embrace. And I feel like that championship was immortalized for far more important reasons than, hey, we won the World Series. And I think the photograph is the reason behind that. What can you
well,
tell us
first of
about
all,
that photograph?
I could tell you the whole history. A photographer called Larry over. He's on the other side of the room. He said, hey, pose with Gromek. Now, Gromek was the fourth pitcher. So he went all the way in that game, and that was an accomplishment in itself. That picture appeared on the front pages of so many newspapers, and some of them were through the very deep South, where no black man and no white man had ever embraced on the front page of any newspaper. Doby, you would expect to get some kind of feedback, but strangely enough, Doby got the good feedback, Womack got the bad feedback.
Really?
And Larry said to me, that picture, when things would go bad, they really go bad for me. I think of that picture. This year, they gave posthumously the Congressional Gold Citizens Medal to Larry Doby. His son accepted it. The front side of that medal is the same for everybody. The recipient decides what goes on the back. Larry wanted that picture on the back of the medal, Larry Jr.
Hmm.
And Steve Gromek, the pitcher, had two sons. They wanted the picture. And Larry had to get a signed release in order to put that picture. Gromek lived in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. He said, I'll get the signatures from you then. I got your front row tickets for Billy Joe. They said, no, we don't want them. We want you to come to our house. We want to get to know you because your father was so remarkable. Now here's what that picture meant. That picture, Larry Doby Sr. used that picture in his address in Cooperstown after all he'd been through when he said, America desperately needed that photo. And I'm glad that the two of us could give it to this country. That was the highlight of his speech. His share of the 1948 World Series was $6,000. A fellow deserves credit. His name is Bill Pasquale. I want to say his name if you can get it in the show, because he's a congressman of Larry Doby's district. and he was the guy most instrumental in making this congressional medal happen.
That's terrific.
Outstanding.
Jerry, we're gonna take a break and let Brad sign off, and then I'll stay on and talk to you just a little bit more. So does that sound good, Jerry? Do you still have a couple of more minutes?
Where am I going? I'm 93 years old. I walk with a walker. Do I have any time?
Jerry, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I could sit and listen to you all day long. I love stories. So
We can do this again if you like later on.
that'd be fantastic. Great. Yeah, I'd love to talk about more of your books.
I got more stories. You have to worry about that.
Excellent. All right, I'll let you talk to Brig for a few minutes. I got to roll. I'll talk to you later then, Jerry.
Good.
Thanks, Brad.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you. You too. Bye.